Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's CRPOA's Off the Record podcast interview featuring investigator Pat Wills. He is a distinguished figure in the fire investigations and legal community. I'm Dom Gamboa, your host and current president of CRPROA. We are thrilled to have Pat here with us, along with my co-host, CRPOA director, the very well-known Jeff Knockett.
I'm in a very small circle.
A special welcome to all our CRPOA members and enthusiasts joining us online today. We look forward to a meaningful discussion diving into Pat's experiences and perspectives that he brings to the conversation. Pat, thank you for being here. And to all our online participants, let's begin with an insightful dialogue. Pat, first of all, thank you for participating in this year's RPOC. Your bio says that you're a current reserve deputy. Could you tell us what department and what your role is with ATF?
Well, I'm actually a reserve deputy with the Orange County Sheriff's Department down here in Orange County, Southern California. In my former life as a fire captain with the city of Long Beach, I supervised the arson unit for the 17 years prior to my retirement in 2014. So that's where my ATF background comes with. But currently, I'm a reserve deputy with Orange County Sheriff's. Been there for about 10 years now. I've worked a variety of assignments. One of the assignments that I have worked is some educational stuff for the department. I've taught for the bomb squad, the coroner, and then my current job is I go out and go 10-8 in the black and white and take people to jail.
Oh, working streets. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's a patrol support function. So it really helps keep the units in the field in service, certainly helps out the supervisors and takes a real heat off of staffing issues. So it's less invasive than being an investigator or being a patrol guy where you're doing calls for service. Report writing can get pretty lengthy and pretty intense. So I've kind of minimized that and gone into this other role where I'm in uniform, I'm in black and white, flying the colors, and the Sheriff's Department in Orange County really appreciates that role, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, we all do. I made that transition from blue, in your case, fire department blue, and my case, LAPD blue to the tan and green and tan, and it's a lot of fun. I still enjoy staying in the game.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good deal.
Yeah. Hey, so Pat, tell us a little bit about your class. And your class is titled Arson and Explosive Response and Investigation. So give us a little background about your experiences, how you became truly an expert in this field, and what are people going to be able to see and experience and learn from your course?
Sure. So my career in the fire department actually started in September 1975. So I've been at this game for a while. So next year will be actually 50 years of continuous service. But in 1998, after 22 years with Long Beach, I had transitioned over to supervise the fire department arson unit, which is a peace officer position. So under the penal code 830.37, we carried guns, we made arrests, but we worked directly with Long Beach Police Department. Phenomenal agency. So I had a fellow sergeant that I actually supervised. He was really my mentor. But we worked together doing not only arson and explosives, and this is limited explosives. It's all post blast. There's no walking up on a device. That's all the bomb squads do that. But it's explosives recognition, post blast, assisting the bomb squad. But our primary job was, we were not assigned to the fire station. We were full-time on a 40-hour week with on-call status, where we went out and investigated fires. And any fire that was deemed to be criminal, we would handle that case essentially from start to finish, with the exception of a murder case where we would just take second seat to the homicide investigators. We would handle the fire end of it to determine origin and cause, and then they would handle everything else because murder cases get pretty intense and pretty labor intensive. So they were the experts at that. And then whatever the cause of the fire was, we would handle that. So that's essentially how we worked in Long Beach. Eventually, my sergeant retired, and I got a full-time detective in my unit. I had, I think, 4 detectives over the 17 years I was there, and we all just became a very cohesive law enforcement team that handled arson crimes. Even though we went to a lot of accidental fires or fires that are undetermined, all of those have to be investigated before the crime of arson can occur. So once that happened, with the exception of high-profile cases like a gang case where we just got a little out of our, it just became too labor-intensive, or homicide, we would handle the whole thing. And that happens from doing all the reports, writing search warrants, whether it be for locations, cell phones, arrest warrants for individuals, testifying in court, filing cases with the district attorney. We did all of that.
Wow. Talk about a whole other aspect of law enforcement that most people never even think about. Absolutely fascinating.
And yeah, right. And a lot of people don't understand that most fire departments in the state of California, most fire departments handle fire investigation duties. Most sheriff's departments do have a satellite duty. LA County sheriffs and I think Riverside, San Diego, San Bernardino have pretty specific arson duties where they take over cases. But most fire departments, for the most part, handle the fire investigation needs of their agency or their communities.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about your course then, and thank you for your background.
Absolutely. So my course is a 4-hour class. It's designed for law enforcement, and it goes through everything from what the crime of arson is and how it is actually determined from start to finish, from arriving at the scene of a fire. How do we go in? A lot of people are very fascinated with how we as investigators go into this giant burned out building and then figure out within a very short amount of time where this fire started and then what the ignition source is. Now, that is easier said than done in many cases, but that's really part of the class. Talk about the crime classifications from accidental fires, undetermined fires, naturally caused fires, to the crime of arson, and what it takes to determine the crime of arson. The crime of arson is determined after all reasonable and natural accidental causes are eliminated using the scientific method, which is a 7-step procedure. It gets very scientific, and you have to know a little bit about science, physical aspects of scene investigation, a little bit of electricity, physical science, and being able to figure out where the fire starts once you get to that location, what the point of ignition is, what that ignition source is, and then how all of that came together to have this fire start. Some fires are very simple because a lot of fires today are caught on video. So it's very easy now to say it's clear that was an arson fire. But one of the ways that we as investigators double check our work is we take the video away and we make ourselves as investigators see if we can determine how the crime of arson would have occurred without the video. And then we bring the video in to use to back up our opinions.
Mm-hmm. That seems like a fascinating approach. So me as a reserve officer taking this course, are there tangible things that I can walk out with? I mean, am I gonna, next time I roll up on something, will I have some particular knowledge or not necessarily skill? Because obviously there's decades of experience that goes into this, but from a street cop perspective, what am I gonna be able to do after I take your course?
Well, one of the things you'll be able to understand is a little bit about the science of fire, how fires start, where they start. But the other thing is, once there is a crime of arson, what are the actual crime classifications through the penal code that are assigned to individual crimes. For example, somebody sets a trash can on fire. That's arson of property, 451D of the Penal Code. If they set a building on fire or an inhabited structure with somebody in it, that then becomes a B. And I like to go through how each crime class actually steps up or accelerates based on the size of the fire or what is actually burned and the actual penalties that go along with it. There's two separate sections of the arson. There's two separate sections of arson under the California Penal Code. One is the 451 section, which is willful and malicious. The people mean to do it. And then there's the 452 section, the reckless and unlawful. A lot of your, the willful and malicious are pretty simple. You see the person walk up, they set something on fire. The reckless and unlawful are a little different. Some of those are fireworks related. They shoot a bottle rocket up, cause a roof to catch on fire. You know, what's our intent? And then what are the penalties that are assigned to each one of them? Under the 451 section, or willful and malicious, anybody that's convicted gets a strike. It's a state prison sentence, and they have to register for life. So I try to go through the registration procedure. What would happen if you came across an arson registrant in the field that may or may not be out of compliance? And really, what are the crime classifications that you as an officer would assign to, like a vehicle that's been set on fire at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you were to have to do that? Or maybe you're going to write a search warrant on a location. What would you want to find at that location related to the arson? So I try to make it a variety of things for the officers to look at. A classic example is your 3 a.m. car fire, and it's not stolen at the time of the fire. So the firefighters get there, they put the fire out, then patrol gets there, and it's like, well, what do you want us to do? Can you run the plate? They run the plate, it doesn't come back stolen. However, it comes back financed. A vehicle that is not stolen, it is financed and may have what is called a transponder key or a fob key. In our experience in Long Beach, we became very good at solving vehicle owner involved fires because we took the time to go and look at the criteria that we used was, is the vehicle stolen at the time of the fire? If it wasn't, was it financed? The third thing was, does it have a transponder key? And would that key have to be in the car for it to move to the location where it was burned? So we became experienced enough to where if we had that criteria at 3 o'clock in the morning, it became very clear pretty quickly over some of our cases that the owners were involved most of the time. Now there's owners that can say, I got legitimately carjacked. But the question we always said to ourselves, what's the motive of the fire if the bad guy is going to steal the car or carjack somebody? Is it crime concealment? But put a little effort into it. And I'll give you just a quick little story about a 3 a.m. car fire that we had. It was up 70th and Paramount in the city of Long Beach. And it was a unreported stolen Nissan Pathfinder. I think it was a 1990 or maybe a 2000. And it turned into a case that was an arson for hire ring out of Cerritos Nissan in Cerritos, California. 3 months into the incident, we had 21 agencies that we were coordinating, including the ATF, Department of Insurance, DMV investigators, LAPD was there, LA sheriffs. Ended up wrapping up 7 or 8 other suspects in this, but it was one of these cases where these people would go into this dealership, Cerritos Nissan, and they would want to get a new car, and the salesman says, your car's not worth anything. Call this guy, he'll set it on fire, report it to your insurance company. Wow. We'll come back and make you a good deal. And that's how that thing went down.
I was wondering the dealer aspect in that, but holy smokes, really?
Yeah, that's how it went down. So
wow.
I can guarantee every agency out there that some car owner is burning their car in their jurisdiction, and it's that small little criteria that set us on the right path to being very good at solving vehicle arson crimes.
That's I think what our members, me particularly, would love to hear about your classes. How did you build all those intuitions? Because Jeff and I, our reaction, we're like, if I had that knowledge when I was on patrol, maybe some things would have changed, right? So here's an example of something. You just gave me PTSD. So while I was at,
You can copy my book.
we'll get to the book, but because I'm interested in knowing that what's in that book. But when I used to work at Tenderloin Station years ago, and there was a bunch of nightclubs, in the area, and so somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll get the well-dressed people come in the station, and they'll say, "Hey, I want to report my car stolen." So what we would do is it's almost like clockwork. This is how we built the intuition. So I can look at them and go, okay, can I get your, vehicle license plate, blah, 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 description of the car. And then I would go over to dispatch and ask them, "Hey, are you guys looking for a hit and run vehicle?" It's
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So when you talked about all those other intuition steps, that just gives us more an advantage in investigations. I think we will start looking at arson investigations a lot different. I do have a off the cuff question though. In your tour of investigating arsons, and in regards to intuition, you ever looked at an arson scene and go, "Yep, I think I know who did this," just based on the common issues that you've seen in other fires? Because that happened to me in my tour of San Francisco PD.
Well, we did, but it was we didn't have a named suspect, but to say yes, I think I know who did this. This would be an owner. This would be a classic owner involved case, like an insurance fraud case. Oh, we had many of those. Sure, absolutely. Or there was cases where this has to be done by juveniles.
Oh,
You got a bathroom on fire inside of a elementary school, a bathroom, and classes in session, right?
How about the opposite?
Find out who just went to the office and got permission to get out of the room.
Yeah. How about the opposite of that? Can you tell when it's professionally done?
oh, wow.
That is so I've heard about that before. Now, how
I
people
admit it.
set
I don't
fires?
know if that's a thing, but I think there are professional arsonists, right? I mean,
Well, there are, but there's also repeat arsonists that are people that do lots and lots of fires because they like it. Serial arsonists, for example. Sometimes you have good indications that the fire's arson right away, where you can smell gasoline. That was my wife in the back. You can smell gasoline. You can see gasoline containers. There's no forcible entry into the building. So those are the signs and symptoms that I'll go through when it comes to some of the cases that I've worked, and give the guys and the gals that are going to attend the lecture how to assist the fire department in working an arson case. Even though right off the bat you may never know until lab reports come back from taking samples inside houses. But getting a good FI on somebody, doing a good CHP 180, having them sign that CHP 180, where's your keys? Take the keys and just book them as evidence. And then when it's time to give them to the insurance company, you hand them over to the insurance company. I can't tell you how many times me and my team, and it's still going on because I'm still in contact with my old team, say the owner said that they lost a key last week. And lo and behold, that key is now used to take the car and it's on fire. So a lot of times it's comical, but sometimes you'll find the key to the car in the car itself. You got to dig through it. But in terms of being a professional job, those are hard that would be very difficult. I haven't come across any overly exotic fuels that somebody is so sophisticated at setting arsons has done. Usually it's a match, a lighter fluid, or gasoline. And it's pretty much limited to that. Now, somebody can say, well, in my jurisdiction, we've had this, but that's been my experience.
Yeah, fascinating. not to story tell, but I will. I was just at a breakfast this morning with a bunch of retired sheriff's deputies up here. One of them, and talk about a remarkable individual. He's a retired sheriff from Madera County. He's going to be 99 years old in a couple of days. He's sitting at breakfast wearing a World War II veteran hat, and on his cane is a medallion from the U.S. Marine Corps. And I'm just like,
Is he a reserve or still on the job?
Oh no, but I have this much respect for this man.
Absolutely.
I mean, about the stories that he could tell, and he was telling some stories, and he told one interestingly, where he was helping with arson investigations, and we're way back, before modern law enforcement. Really, we're probably back in the '60s, and there was a house that blew up. And no one had any idea killed the woman inside or horribly disfigured her. No one had any idea of what had caused it. And so he basically went around. He picked a shady spot under a tree on a hot day, put his patrol car there, got a folding chair and a cooler, and sat there long enough until people started coming up and talking. And this one woman walked up and said, somehow the burn scar over there came up in the conversation. She says, "Yeah, I was lucky I didn't get blown up in that." And oh, really? Well, you were there. And so the conversation started. It turns out the woman needed to clean something and got a bunch of gasoline and went in her house and started scrubbing the walls or whatever. And the woman said, "Yeah, the fumes were so strong I had to get out of the building." And a couple minutes after I left, the place blew up. Kind of solved the crime.
Or so she says.
But I like how that all just came together.
Yeah, it's kind of, and it's just, he was making the point about, policing isn't always, kicking down doors and putting people in handcuffs. Sometimes it's sitting under
Absolutely not.
There are cold drinks on a hot day.
Well, and the other thing about patrol, and this is because most of the guys are going to work patrol, is patrol has so much experience in the streets, including these reserve officers and deputies. They have snitches, they have CIs. That is the information superhighway to solving a lot of crimes, just being out in the streets. So for me, it's like I would tell the officers right away, just start beating the bush. Just find out who knows what. And lo and behold, you would get information that came in, and next thing you know, you've got your suspect and the suspect's in custody.
Yeah.
The key is trying to get that person in for the preliminary hearing, but and that reserves are there. If they're working patrol, that's what patrol does. Patrol knows everybody in their beat, and they know how to get information from people that are CI, snitches, or have warrants.
Yeah. Pat, you touched on something, and I want to come back to it it's a subject of interest to me because now I'm in a very rural area where, we'll get a rash of wildfires that will just start along a stretch of road, or sometimes it's very explainable. Some guy towing a boat, dragging a chain, right? And you've got a little fire that starts every quarter mile where a spark went off in the brush. But, other times it's a lot more sophisticated or involved in that. For a rural deputy or officer rolling up onto a situation like that, do you have any advice for what to do or what not to do that might help preserve or bring to light information regarding whether or not this might be arson or something else? I mean, I always marvel at how a fire starts in the middle of nowhere on a cloudless day where there's no lightning, and just in the backcountry, it's a different world.
Well, each fire is always going to be different from the next, and don't take anything for granted. It doesn't mean that every fire that starts is going to be arson. That's not the case. But what somebody should be inquisitive about is, what was the true cause of this? You talked about lightning. We will research lightning and lightning strikes, even in an obvious arson fire, so that we can show that we did due diligence to actually investigate that and eliminate that as a potential cause. And I think if people take it seriously, they look at, the other thing is this a repeated pattern? Is this happening like once or twice a week? every Thursday night, every Tuesday afternoon when kids get out of school, those type of patterns, and they should document and at least put something in their MDC or something that can be queried that would say, and take photos too. Just take photos, whether it's with your body cam, your in-car video, or an iPhone that's an official department issued, and archive it. Book it as evidence. It can't take that long.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you believe that fire is, you're suspecting that it could have been started intentionally, get the people that investigate those fires out there.
Yeah.
Get them out there and get the investigation launched. And in terms of all these fire investigations, they're very sophisticated. They can be very labor intensive. They're very dangerous investigations, but for the most part, deputies deputies or officers can stand right alongside the investigators as they're looking at burn patterns, photographing the insides of buildings or houses, vehicles, and learn some things about how fires are investigated.
That'd be fascinating. Yeah,
and that's some of the things I'm going to go through in my lecture.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I like to use a lot of videos, show a lot of videos about fires, fire patterns, flashovers, backdraft, how people get in trouble. Arsonists get in trouble when they underestimate using gasoline. Next thing you know, they're on fire, and I show all that.
Wow. Hey, I'll just go back to, I'm just fascinated by this kind of stuff, because I think I was telling you, Pat, that so going back to that one case where I was talking about, being able to see signs or kind of predict who did this. Well, we in San Francisco, we had a guy who was setting mattresses on fire, but he wasn't just setting mattresses on fire on the street. He would only do it for certain hotels in a certain area. And so we had like 2 of them in 1 week. And so the San Francisco PD arson investigator comes out to one of our scenes, and this is what he told us. Go outside. He gives a picture. He goes, go outside. Let me know if you see this guy. Boom. That guy was there watching the fire department put out that fire.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you'll get the guy that comes back to the scene.
Yeah.
The true fire setter. I have a really good video that I'll show of a kid that we arrested who had just turned 18 in Long Beach. He was a fire explorer. Wow. And turned out to be an arsonist. Got popped for an arson crime.
Wow. And
then ends up setting a fire on the 4th of July in 2002. That's all on video, because I was with my deputy chief and our fire department video guy. And when we overhear this call come out on the radio of a structure fire, and the whole thing's on video, and what the aftermath of this case was. This case would actually go for about almost 20 years, because he got 21 years in custody, but in year 20, I went to visit him at state prison, and he told me something that I did not know. I was suspicious of it, but I did not know about it at the time of the incident. So
wow.
I had some information from one of my partners that this guy wanted to talk. And I capitalized on it, put my suit on, went up to Dewell State Prison, and talked to him. And he confessed to doing something at that scene that I knew he did, but he did not admit it at the time. But 21 years later, he does. And he's out of custody right now. I can guarantee you, wherever he is, he's setting fires in their neighborhood. How comforting.
Sure is. It sure is. Hey, Pat, in the background there, you've got a book. I believe that's you on the cover there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
It is. Let me grab it. So this is my book. It's a book that I wrote about a true case in the city of Long Beach in 2007. It's called The Reality of PTSD When Children Die. And it's a true story about a fire that occurred in December of 2007, where 3 little kids, Jasmine, Stephanie, and Jocelyn Aviles, would die in a fire that was caused by a small space heater. It was an accidental fire, but the circumstances surrounding this fire and some of the aftermath that would come with this investigation was, and now I admit it, was very difficult for me to handle. And I didn't say a word to anybody for nearly 3 years after this incident, and ended up writing a book on this, dedicated to not only my team, but Long Beach Police Department, the dispatchers. It affected so many people, from the firefighters that were on scene, the paramedics, the nurses that treated these kids. And this book actually goes into a fourth death of a child that will occur in that family 37 days after the incident. And it was just an incredible amount of death in a short period of time.
Wow.
And that's the story that I wrote in my book.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I can just tell by your speech that, you still live with it. And you know the names of the kids. You don't even hesitate. They're still present with you.
Well, and I think what's also important is, and this is to the credit of the reserve officers and the deputies, even though they're in a limited capacity like I am now, I'm not full-time anymore in the fire service or law enforcement, they're just as affected and just as vulnerable to anything that happens to a full-time member. And there's nothing that says that some of these reserves that are going to see this video or attend this lecture or any of the lectures, they've had just as much or even greater incidences of tragedy than I have. I've been around a long time, but so have a lot of other people. And this goes from the East Coast to the West Coast to the North border to the South border and beyond. So we're all in this together. So this book is for everybody also.
Yeah. You make an interesting point in that there's, PTSD or the effects there can be cumulative, doing something every day forever, and just aware of seeing people in need or seeing people hurt over time. But we're also subject to a specific event having that effect on us and putting us into a crisis. And that's an important thing. And, reserves being part-time, you're, as you say, you're no less susceptible to it. More than likely from an event aspect, maybe not from the cumulative, but that's an important distinction to make.
Well, and there's reserves that work very high profile cases from, not only patrol, but they're working the bomb squad, they're working homicide, they're working SWAT, child abuse. They all are part of this problem. And that includes their families also.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond just the guys and the gals in the uniforms. And one of the things that I clearly figured out was the first call went to Long Beach PD. The second call went to the fire department. And it dawned on me writing this book, and we all know about dispatchers and how angry we get when they give us the wrong address or whatever. But imagine sitting in their seat from where they're at, and they cannot see a thing that we're seeing, and they have to fill in the blanks with their own imagination, and that is not fair.
Right.
So they're part of this book also.
Yeah. We have several courses at RPUC this year dealing with trauma and the stresses on officers. And we've talked to several other instructors and done these interviews with them, and we're very glad to bring those people and that information to the officers and deputies.
Yeah, and it's a wide range of different topics, and it all somehow with this at this juncture in law enforcement, there's a lot of discussion on wellness, and particularly emotional wellness, and how this career can impact you after so many years. It doesn't take long, but it definitely will have an impact to you, whether you realize it or not. But eventually it'll surface. So this is a great conversation. Jeff, do you have anything else? Otherwise, I'm going to
Well, sir, I want to be respectful of Patrick's time and a fascinating conversation. Dom, I'll say it again. ARPOC needs to be 10 days because
Yeah.
you need to attend every one of these courses, not just whatever you can fit into the schedule in 3 days.
Yeah. So I
I'll
hope
try
that,
to make it interesting.
wow, this was interesting, just this short period of time. And now this gets to it will be expanded over several hours. I hope you'll make time for a book signing. We'll make sure that you get the right venue for that. But thanks again for jumping on this podcast interview. So in closing, for those aiming to advance their careers and create a meaningful impact in law enforcement, Pat's wealth of experience and his classes are invaluable. With that, I want to extend a warm invitation to all law enforcement professionals and enthusiasts to join us at the upcoming ARPOC conference featuring high-end training classes and instructors just like Pat at the Marriott Los Angeles Burbank Airport Hotel, located across from the Bob Hope Airport. Our thoughtfully selected courses offer practical insights that will transform your approach to law enforcement duties. So seize this opportunity to boost your skills, network with your peers, and help shape the future of law enforcement. So the ticker is down below. Register as soon as you can, and we look forward to seeing you. Thanks again, Pat, for your time, and I can't wait to meet you in person.